Good morning, Rabbi Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah. We are holding on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Bet on the bottom of the page by the Mishnah, 5 lines up. Today's Amud is being learned for Schud Menashe ben Asi and Yeshua ben Diana. Also is being learned Leilu Nishmat Sipora Bad Yitzchak. The Mishnah now says we're going to be back for a few pages to the prime sugyot of Avodah Zarah before we at the end of the week again go back to some fascinating divrei Agada. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, avodat kochavim chutz ala mutar. If you have, the question the Mishnah is going to discuss mainly is, if you have Avodah Zarah somewhere, so we discussed already in the first Mishnah that you can't do business with them not only during the day of the Yom Edam, of the Chaga, of the Goyim, but rather 3 days before. So it's a total of 4 days that you cannot do business with them because they're going to go thank their Avodah Zarah. That was the prime sugya of the first Mishnah. Now, where do you draw the line? If I have a city, and back in the day, cities were not like nowadays that you have like a Los Angeles, a large city, and then you have cities across the borderline, but rather, you have a city and then you have marketplaces next to it, you have villages next to it. Where do you draw the line? Is everything that goes with the city asur, or is it only the core of the city that's asur, and outside would be mutar? So the Mishnah says, if you have an ir sheyesh ba avodat kochavim, if you have an area that they serve a certain avodah zarah, and they have a yom chaga, they have a holiday for that avodah zarah, chutz ala mutar. Outside of it is mutar. It's only primarily asur in the city, not outside of it, even if it is right adjacent to it. Says the Gemara, it works both ways. If you have a party in the marketplace outside the city itself is not celebrating the Avodah Zarah, also is mutar. Hayachutz ala avodat kochavim tochala mutar. Then the second question of the Gemara is, can you go there? I'm not going to buy anything. Now, the issue of doing business is one thing. How about if I just want to go there? I want to go visit a friend. I want to go see the sightseeings that are there, Niagara Falls, whatever it is that I want to see. Nothing to do with the people, not doing business. Can I go there? Says the Mishnah, if the pathway that leads to the city only leads to that city that's partying for Avodah Zarah, then it's asur. Why? Because of Marit Ayin. Marit Ayin means that I'm not doing anything wrong, but it looks like I'm doing something wrong. So here it looks like I'm going to party with the Ovdei Avodah Zarah. No one knows my intentions. It looks bad, hence asur. Even though that I don't have intention of Avodah Zarah, says the Mishnah, but if you could, that path could lead to a different city afterwards, in other words, it would be a transit, and then I would be going somewhere else, or the path itself is going to have a fork and go somewhere else at the end, that would be mutar. So if it's for sure leading to only a place of Avodah Zarah, it's a problem. If there is a chance that it could be leading somewhere else, then we spoke already about the Rashba. The Rashba says that if there are other Jews there, and the Rosh writes even one Jew, even one another Jew there, it's mutar. Certainly, if you live there yourself, even if you're the only Jew, but you live in that city that now is partying for Avodah Zarah that day and you're going home, that's not Marit Ayin, because everyone knows that this guy is going to go home, therefore it will be mutar. So says the Gemara. And again, we mentioned that Ritbas is, on this Gemara, that's not just a city, but it's going to also be a problem when you go to a community or to a place of Avodah Zarah. Hence, will be a question if you could enter a place of Avodah Zarah on their holiday. For instance, on Sunday you want to go to a church to vote. can you go to, because many times the voting, the polls are held in churches because of the parking area that they have, because of the public, location that there is, and so on. So Rav Moshe Feinstein actually writes at Shuvah on this. He says, Meikar Adin, there is room to be Mekel because you're not going in the morning, you're going in the afternoon. It's not the time for it. It's not even in the so-called sanctuary, but it's on one of the side rooms, and so on and so forth. So therefore, Meikar Adin, there is room to be discussed, even though that there's a completely different sugya that we have to deal with, which we haven't gotten to yet, of going into a bit Avodah Zarah. Entering a bit Avodah Zarah is by itself a questionable thing, right? This extends itself not only to an Avodah Zarah, but even a bayit of minut. For instance, if you deal with reform Judaism, is it mutar to go to a reform shul? Is it not mutar to go to a reform shul? And so on. It could be even more questionable than, technically speaking, than a mosque, because, like the Rambam writes, the Muslims do not have any doubt in their monotheist it's considered monotheist faith, and his language is en be'emunatam shum dofi. There's nothing wrong with their emunah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Their belief to one Hashem, to one God, is a perfect belief of a monotheist religion, and therefore holds the Rambam, they're not considered Ovdei Avodah Zarah. Hence, you could really go. Actually, I remember how I went to the kever of Daniel Hanavi in my attempt to going through all of the Jewish communities in Iran before I left. I made a point to go to what I believe is the actual Shushan Habira. Contrary to what people believe that it's the city of Hamadan, there is no chance. Not even 1% chance that Hamadan is Shushan Habira, for a different time, not for now. Sorry to burst your bubble, but what I believe Shushan Habira is the city called Shustar. Really, Shustar is next to Shush, but what's called Shush nowadays is what used to be Shushan Habira, and actually they have the kever of Daniel Hanavi over there, upon which they have built a magnificent mosque, which I entered and I davened by the kever of Daniel Hanavi. Over there, they have devoted Muslims that they serve the kever all times, and they'll tell you all kinds of miracles about it, and so on. It was an interesting encounter, a very fascinating experience. And as I was entering it, I was thinking about this Rambam that that's not considered a beit Avodah Zarah, because en be'emunatam shum dofi, there's nothing wrong really with the emunah of the Muslim faith. So says the Gemara.
Doesn't the Gemara say anyway that in the Chutzlaretz or in Galut there's no real Avodah Zarah?
Well, that's you're talking about the. Well, yes, there is a shita of Tosafot, really, whether or not nowadays of the Avodah Zarah are considered of the Avodah Zarah, or is it just minhag avotem b'yedeihem, without getting too much in the details of that shita, based on the Gemara, is the religions that we have nowadays, in their core, we're speaking about not necessarily the practicing of the people who follow that religion. So says the Gemara, what is considered the boundaries of inside versus outside of Avodah Zarah? What does it mean outside? Outside the city, 2,000 amot, like the thing of Eruv. What exactly is outside the city? You come out immediately is considered outside. Again, back in the day, it was not like a clear boundaries and walls necessarily. So what exactly is considered chutzala? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Mishum Rabbi Chanina, Kegon itluza shel Aza, Veika Damri. And there are those who say itluza Aza is a marketplace for shchita of purchasing animals for shchita that was extremely close, as Rashi says, to the city of Aza. Veikat Amri ba mine Rabbi Shimon Lakish. There are those who say he didn't answer it, but he was asking. He said, "Tell me, if something like itluza the Aza," he asked Rabbi Chanina, "Itluza shel Aza mahu." Such a close place to the city itself, you have the city of Aza, and mamash adjacent to it you have Itluza shel Aza, which is not the prime city, but it's like a marketplace adjacent to the city, but mamash adjacent to the city. Is that mutar or asur? And he answered him the following, a very cryptic answer. He says, instead of answering straightforward yes, no, he says, well, have you never been in the city of Tzur and you've seen a goy and a yid sitting next to each other, and you have a kira, which was different than tanur? Those who have done the smicha program with us, you know that the kira is a rectangular surface on the top, and makom shvitat shtekterot, you have two holes that are exposed to the fire on the bottom, and you could put two pots on top of it, versus a tanur that's only one. So you have, says the Gemara, you have a goy and a yid next to each other, you have a treif pot and a kosher lemahadrin min hamahadrin bet Yosef pot over there, and the yid is cooking his food, the goy is cooking his food, and we have no problem with that. So you have never seen that? V'ra'ita Yisrael u'ovdei kochavim sheshaftu shte kterot al gabe kira achat v'lo chashu lahem chachamim. And chachamim were never worried about this. Now, this was quite an answer, because what's the shaychut, what's the connection between the city of Sur and cooking on top of a kira with a goy, with our question of Ovdei Avodah Zarah and doing business b'yom edam? So the Gemara is going to have no less than 3 different understandings, and each one of them is a descending order of chashash, starting from a chashash deoraita, ending with a chumra be'alma, versus the middle one being a derabanan, is going to be the understanding of the Gemara. So says the Gemara, let's go through all the 3 answers. The Gemara asks, what did he answer him, Rabbi Chanina? What does it mean, the comparison with sur and cooking a treif pot next to a kosher pot on top of a kira? And Chazal were not choshesh for it. Amar Abaye, we have Abaye and then we have Rava. Abaye holds mishum basar nevela. Lo amrinan dilma mehad rape Yisrael la'achore v'shadi ovet kochavim nevela bekederad. We are not choshesh for isur deoraita. What's the isur deoraita? The Jew is cooking next to the goy. Each one of them, they have their raw material there. They're cooking. And why aren't we choshesh that the Jew is going to take his mind or his sight off of the pot for 1 second, turn around, and the goy is going to quickly put the piece of treifa inside the pot? It would be a chashash isur deoraita, right? If he wants to, he could do that. If he wants to, he could do that. And yet we're not choshesh for that, right? And over here also says the Gemara, the Kvata, that's the answer Rabbi Chanina was giving him, that just like over there, potentially we could have been choshesh, we could have been worried that the goy is going to switch some meat and put treif in the yid's pot, and we're not choshesh. Over here also there's a chashash deoraita, mishum demei avodat kochavim, because of the money of avodat kochavim. What does that mean? If a goy, according to Rashi, if a goy dedicates money to Avodah Zarah, right? So the dedication of the money to Avodah Zarah, that would be, the money will become Isur Takrovet av Avodah Zarah. And we mentioned before that Isur Takrovet av Avodah Zarah, if you put something, you bring something as a Tikrovet for Avodah Zarah, that thing becomes Isur Hana'at Deoraita. Because it says in the Pasuk, Lo yidbak bi'adcha me'uma min acherem. You can't benefit anything from the cherem. We spoke about this when we spoke briefly about the question that came up about 10 years ago, and again beforehand about 25 years ago, 30 years ago almost, about the shaitels and Indian hair, which people went out. You see pictures of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, many others that went out burning shaitels in public because they realized if this actually comes from the Indian temples, the Hindu temples, that they let their hair grow and then they shave it in front of the Avodah Zarah as a process of tikrovet Avodah Zarah, then the hair would be just not only asur to wear it, but you can't even own it. Right? And that became, again, Choser v'neur 10 years ago, and it became a whole question. There are many poskim, even nowadays, that they still say that this whole thing is now going through a loop into other maybe European countries, but all is sourced from Indian hair. Others disagree, so it stayed kind of as a machloket that it's not really so clear. So if you do have use for that, you ask your local Orthodox rabbi, but nevertheless, this is a question that would be there, right? That if you have money as tikrovet avodah zarah, On the day of Eid, why aren't you choshesh? You know, this is the day of their holiday, and the money could change so many hands. Why aren't you choshesh? Why aren't you concerned that when you go to a store of the Avodah Zarah right next to the city, maybe I should be concerned that the money that he is giving me, the change that he's giving me, is a money of tikrovet Avodah Zarah, and that should be asur doraita, versus the regular doing business with the goyim on the day of their holiday, which is the only isur darabanan. So that's what the Gemara says. Abaye said, in explanation of Rabbi Hanina's answer, why the comparison with the goy and the yid that they're cooking next to each other. Because just like there, I would have said that it should be a isur deoraita because you take your eye off and you could put a piece of treif in your pot. And it's a chashash deoraita. Here also there would be a chashash deoraita. And Rabbi Hanina was answering him just like by the cooking. We're not choshesh that the goy is going to put a piece of treif in your pot. Here also we're not choshesh that the money that you receive from him is actually a money of Avodah Zarah. Parenthetically, I'll tell you an interesting story. I was, when we were getting married, I wanted to research all the potential problems with kashruyot, because for the first time I felt achrayut of hundreds of people eating in our simcha. So I went for a month and a half, 2 months before, researching the different things. And I interviewed a lot of mashgichim, to hear firsthand from them what happens. One of them told me how there was no fear of the Jewish mashgichim on the workers of the establishments, and he told me a story that when they had gone to a hotel to kasher the hotel, it's a very tedious job for tens of hours. Sometimes you have to stay there kasher if the catering itself does not have its own all of its vessels and so on. So you have to kosherize a lot of things, and you have the kosher kitchen, and it could become difficult for the workers that are there. They feel like they're owners of the place, and you coming in, invading their space, and so on. So he got into some verbal argument with one of them, and he had to be strong. And when they took off for lunch and came back, as he's doing hagala into this massive pot, doing hagala on the treif kelim, he puts a pot in, and it comes out with a whole piece of massive piece of meat of a pork that the guy had dropped in the hagala pot of the hotel. So everything that they had done hagala was basically treifed up, that to start over everything. So it's easy for a goy actually to do that. The Tosafot actually in the second Tosafot over here discusses why is it that we're not choshesh when we bring a goy and to work for us, and you just leave them, your shivchas, with your home. Why aren't we choshesh that they will mess up and put a treif in your pot? And Tosafot says, generally speaking, if they have nothing to benefit from, we're not choshesh. We're only concerned if there's something for them to benefit. Here, they're going to go pay for some money and put it in your pot for no reason. It's not that they want to make you suffer an isur. It's not necessarily something that they benefit from. When you don't even know that you did an isur, and they in their heart would be happy. So therefore, it's not something that, this is based on also some of the achronim who explained the Tosafot. So that's the reason that we are not concerned about a goy doing that. So that's, be that as it may, first approach of the Gemara based on Abaye. Rava says, no, what are you talking about? The chashash isur doraita, that's not the pshat. That's not the pshat. The pshat is the following. Says Rava Amar, 7 lines down. The isur is, we're not choshesh in that case that the goy and a yid, they're cooking on top of a kira together, and Chazal were not choshesh means they were not concerned that the yid is going to ask the goy, says, well, Chef Louis, you guy, you know how to cook over here. Maybe you should cook my pot because you're a better cook. And hence, if a goy cooks your food, what's going to be? Isur darabanan. Isur darabanan, we're going to discuss that in Daf Lamed Hey, in the Mishnah, until through Lamed Chet, the whole sugya by itself later on in Masechet Avodah Zarah. But nevertheless, that's Isur darabanan. And just like they were not choshesh over there, Rabbi Hanina is answering him, over here also we're not choshesh for a Isur darabanan of a person that is living next to a city, and is doing business with them, and maybe you're going to end up doing business with an Oved Avodah Zarah. Here also, Chazal were not choshesh for doing business with them on Yom Edam. In other words, you're not choshesh that this Oved Kochavim is really in his mind following the Avodah Zarah of the people inside the city, and he is really celebrating it, even though that the people outside the city do not celebrate. That would be a chashash of Isur Darabanan. So that's the second way the Gemara explains it. And the third way, says the Gemara, Rabba Bar Ula Amar, that's the third one, Lo chashu lahem chachamim mishum sinora. The chashash is a chumra ba'alma. It's not even a derabanan. It's not even a isur derabanan. You know what it is? The chashash is that when you're cooking two pots next to each other, many people, by the way, have even if you only have one stove, the fancier houses nowadays, they have a stove for milchik, they have a stove for fleishik. But the ones the people who only have one stove top, many of them, they have one burner that's for milchik and the rest of them are for fleishik, right? They want to make sure that spills and so on and so forth don't become a halachic challenge. So says the Gemara, well, if you're cooking a pot of treif next to a pot of kosher, what's the challenge? The challenge is, let's say you have the goy is stirring his pot with a ladle, takes the ladle off, and a little drop of treif jumps into your food, right? Things are going to, or it's bubbling, and it's going to jump some of the, some of the king crab food is going to jump into your kosher lemehadrin cholent, right? So that's going to be a problem. But it's a small problem because, first of all, who says it's going to happen? It's a chashash rachok. Secondly, even if it would jump, what would be the halacha? It would be batel. So therefore, we're not so concerned for it, and that's only a chashash. So you see how it's descending. The first one Abaye holds is Isur Deoraita, chashash of Isur. Rava says Isur Derabanan only, of Bishul Akum. And Rabba Bar Ula says it's just a chashash of something jumping into the food, and that would be only a chumra. So says the Gemara, here also, we're not choshesh lifnei edehem. That means 3 days before the Yom Tov, they're going to be going and thanking the Avodah Zarah. That's already a big chashash. That you're outside the city, and you're choshesh that this guy that I'm doing the business with, outside the city, that does not celebrate the Yom Tov, the Chaga of the Goyim inside the city, he's going to be going and thanking the Avodah Zarah of his 4 days, 3 days prior to their Chag. That's already too much of a chashash, and that's on that the Chanina was answering him, we are not choshesh. Be that as it may, of course the message of the Gemara is, we are not choshesh. As long as you have a city, and next to it, the place next to it will be not a problem in terms of doing business with them before Yom Edam. Says the Gemara, the next piece of the Mishnah was going there, which the Mishnah said if he only ends up in that place, there will be asur. If it could lead to a different place, it will be mutar. That's the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Ir sheyesh ba'avodat kochavim, asur likanas letocha, velo mitocha le'ir acheret. There are two problems. If you have a city that has avodat kochavim, not only you can't enter the city on the day of their holiday, but even if you live in the city, you can't go out of the city. Just lock yourself up that day until the day passes, then you get out. So it says, that's Rabbi Meir. Chachamim omrim, kol zman she'aderech miyuchedet le'oto makom asur, en haderech miyuchedet le'oto makom mutar. If the pathway that goes to the town only leads to that town, then it's asur. If you could segue to a different place, or you go from the town and then the other end of the town has a road out to a different place, so it's a transit, it will be mutar. Says the Gemara, some side halachot. Yashav lo kotz bifnei avodat kochavim, lo yishchev iterena mipnei shenireh kemishtachave la'avodat kochavim. Now this path leading to the town is the Isur Marit Ayin, because it looks like you're doing Avodah Zarah. It looks like you're associated with Avodah Zarah. There are some technical halachot about Marit Ayin that are nothing to do with the path. You're just going, and there is a statue of Avodah Zarah there, and you got a thorn in your foot, right in front of the Avodah Zarah. And you want to stop, bend, and take the thorn out of your foot before you keep on walking. Can you do that in front of the statue of Avodah Zarah? Says the Gemara, no, because it looks like you're bowing to the Avodah Zarah. That's one halacha. Second halacha,
the concept of Maritime got brought up because Kozman Shadav Meyucheded, even though you know you're not going there.
That's correct. Even though that you don't want to go serve the Avodah Zarah, if the path you're taking only leads to a city that's doing Avodah Zarah and nowhere else, then it will become a problem, right? And therefore, that's a Isur of Marit Ayin, and hence the Gemara now segues into other Isurim of Marit Ayin that have nothing to do necessarily with going on a path, but have to do with a person doing something that looks like Avodah Zarah. So first of them is, if you want to take a thorn out, or any other activity, you want to fix your shoes, and you have to bend for that in front of the Avodah Zarah, and it looks to the onlooker as if you're bowing to this statue, where you're really just fixing your foot, that would be asur. But if your back is to whatever, it doesn't look like you're bowing, you could bend in a way that does not look like bowing, then it's mutar. Let's imagine your bag of money fell and got spread all over in front of the Avodah Zarah. You want to bend down to pick up your money, right? Can you bend down and pick up your money? Same thing, you can't do it because it looks like you're doing Avodah Zarah. If it doesn't look like you're bending, you could manage doing it in a way that does not look like you're bowing down to the Avodah Zarah, then it's of course mutar. Says the Gemara. The third and final example, when you have Ma'ayan HaMoshech, they used to have, this is Machlokes Rishonim. On one hand, the Ra'ah, for instance, says that this is the statues that were known as Avodah Zarah. Sometimes they wanted to show that their life force comes from the Avodah Zarah, so they would make a statue of the Avodah Zarah, and the water supporting an area would be pouring out from the mouth of the Avodah Zarah to whatever it is that it would supply water for, right? They're very frum like that. So the Ra'ah says this is talking about the case that the statue itself is Avodah Zarah. Samag, one of the other Gdolei Rishonim, he writes that this is not, the statue itself is not Avodah Zarah. That would be a bigger problem. But this is a noi of Avodah Zarah. In other words, you would have the fat sitting naked golden statue over there, and they would make like beautiful statues in front of it that would pour water from all sides. That would be considered a noi Avodah Zarah. And that also is asur, as we will see. And there are others who say that these are tsurot of Avodah Zarah. In other words, you would have a certain statue, certain shape or person that they would worship, even though that this specific statue they don't bow to, but this is the image of that Avodah Zarah. And that's what we're talking about over here. So be that as it may, it is a connection directly with Avodah Zarah, with this statue that is a fountain of water. And can you go put your mouth on the mouth of this statue and drink from it? That's the question, right? It looks like you're kissing the mouth of the Avodah Zarah, or the noi of Avodah Zarah, or the image of Avodah Zarah, however you slice that. It has some connection with Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, you should not bend down and drink from it because it looks like you're bowing down to Avodah Zarah, right? If it's water in front of Avodah Zarah, there will be, I jumped the gun one stage, there will be asur to bend down and drink because it looks like you're bowing to the Avodah Zarah. And if it's the statue itself, that you have this, the statues themselves, either Avodah Zarah or a noi of Avodah Zarah, that the water supporting a krach, a big city, comes from their mouth, right? Then, says the the Gemara, lo yaniach piv al piem, don't put your mouth on their mouth, ve'ishte, and drink, because he looks like you're kissing the Avodat Kochavim, and that would be a problem. Also, it's completely side halacha. Once we discussing putting your mouth somewhere and drinking water, says the Gemara, don't put your mouth on a pipe and drink straight from the pipe without monitoring what you're drinking. And that has nothing to do with Avodah Zarah. That has to do with Hilchot Sakana. Why is it dangerous? As the Gemara is going to say, because all kinds of creatures lived in, you think the New York water is bad with the small creatures that they have, really. But back in the day, when you don't have sifting waters and so on, so you could have leech in the water, you could have all kinds of different things in the water, and they actually could be very dangerous. I remember as a child when we went to the sea in northern parts of Iran, for those who remember, in Bab el-Sar and so on, and there was a flooded area. They just had a storm right before, the night before, and we went and we were walking into water to our waist and catching different creatures. We were looking for the water snakes and so on, and I saw something very long swimming in the water. I thought it was a small water snake. I put it next to a frog over there that we had, and it turned out actually to be a black leech, and it's attached itself to the spine of this frog, and it killed it in just a matter of a few minutes. So the Gemara was very concerned about leech especially, but other creatures as well. Now, if you research it, it may not be as bad as the Gemara makes it to be, but nevertheless, it could be fatally dangerous in some cases. Therefore, the Gemara says, is sakara, you don't just drink without checking what you're drinking. You want to first monitor what exactly it is that you're drinking. It says the Gemara, so first of all, the Gemara goes back now to discuss what does it mean that it doesn't look like you're doing Avodah Zarah. Ilma delo mitchazi v'amar Rav amar Rabbi Yehuda amar Rav kol makom she'asru chachamim mipnei marit ayin afilu b'chadrei chadarim asur. Any time that you have a isur because of marit ayin, that is asur, even b'chadrei chadarim. Even if you go inside a room, lock yourself inside, 2 rooms, lock yourself, still going to be asur if it's something that's asur for marit ayin. Ela ema im eno nir'eh kemishtachave. Not that it doesn't look, but if you do it in a way that you clearly do not bend to the Avodah Zarah, but you do it a sideways, something that does not look like a bowing to the Avodah Zarah, that's when it's mutar. Not that you're bowing in front of the Avodah Zarah, but no one is there to see. But you're not really bowing, you're just doing it in a side way that does not look like the bowing to the Avodah Zarah, then it will be mutar. Now, the Gemara says, why do you have to have 3 cases? We had a case of a person that had thorn in his foot. We have a case of person's money falling. We have a case of drinking water in front of Avodah Zarah. So just say don't do something that looks like bowing to Avodah Zarah and yalla, call it a day. Why do you have to give me 3 different cases? The Gemara says all 3 cases are a necessity. Says the Gemara, if you would only say the case of thorn that sat in your foot, you could limp few steps away and do it. It's not the end of the world. You could walk a few more steps and take it out, not in front of the Avodah Zarah. So I would say that's why you should be machmir. But when your money fell, you can't say, well, your money fell here, go there and collect your money over there. It's not coming with you. You have to collect it over here. So it says, ma'ot de lo efshar emalo. Maybe it will be mutar. You're not mechuyav to lose your money. Ve'itara ma'ot, and if I would tell you ma'ot, I would say, well, maybe you have to lose your money, but if you're thirsty, you're dying from thirst, and if you don't drink here, you may not make it to the next fountain, and you may die. So it's mamash sakarat defashot, right? Or chashash of sakarat defashot. Well, let's first do this. Ve'itara ma'ot. If the Gemara reverses both of them. If the Gemara would say only ma'ot, money, but not the case of the thorn, kots the sara emalo. I would say money, maybe you should lose, but to go through sar, every step is painful. You have this bad thorn sitting in your foot. Maybe it will be mutar. So therefore, you need to say both of them in both ways, right? You can't even flip them. Says the Gemara. Veitana hani tarti mishum deleka sakana. If you would say only these 2, that's only because there's no sakana. Aval ma'yan, but the case of drinking water, well, you can't pass on this water because you go somewhere else, you may not catch water and you may be in danger. The ika sakana, the ilo shati mayit, that you could actually die if you don't drink. Emalo sricha we would have said maybe no, and then therefore it would be a necessity to say all of them. And says the Gemara, Parsufot, just let's finish this. Parsufot lamali, mishum the kabai lemitni kayotzebo. Why do you need the fourth case of putting your mouth on a Avodah Zarah and drinking, or an anoya of Avodah Zarah? That already is pretty clear. The Gemara already gave the example of drinking water. So why do you need that? The Gemara says, Taka, you don't need that. That the Gemara only brings to tell you that second case of drinking unmonitored from a pipe of water without saying what you're drinking. The Gemara says, what's the sakara? My sakara, aluka. The sakara is actually swallowing a leech or any other creature that may put your life in jeopardy. So therefore, you should be careful. Bezat Hashem will continue this in the days to come.